The buffalo stood at the boundary where tall grass ended and open earth began. Behind him stretched the familiar safety of the herd, warm bodies, steady breaths, the quiet communication of hooves shifting in dirt. Ahead lay a vast expanse of land that seemed too wide for any creature to claim. The plains. They shimmered under a bruised sky, lit not by sunlight but by the restless flicker of lightning crawling between rolling clouds. Pale blue veins tore across the heavens, illuminating the horizon in sudden, silent pulses, like the sky was testing its power before deciding to unleash it. The buffalo lowered his head, letting the rough tips of grass brush his muzzle. He could taste tension in the air, metallic, sharp, like a storm swallowed by the wind but not yet digested. The air pressed close to his hide, thick with heat and static. Every strand of his coarse fur quivered, standing slightly on edge. He snorted. It didn't echo. Sound had weight tonight, and the storm was holding it hostage. He stamped one hoof into cracked ground. Subtle vibrations traveled upward through his leg bone, into his chest. The land wasn't sleeping. It was waiting. The dryness of the soil felt brittle under the surface, ready to soften at the first touch of rain. Rain that wasn't here yet. Rain that was still being argued over by the sky. His huge shoulders shifted as he turned to look back at the herd. Dozens of eyes reflected the distant lightning, each animal waiting for him. Their scout, their leader, their proof that the plains could be crossed. Breath steamed from his nostrils. Even the air leaving his lungs felt electrically charged. A fresh bolt of lightning clawed downward in the distance. Huge, jagged, dangerously bright. It struck the earth somewhere far out on the plains, but still too close for comfort. The buffalo's ears twitched at the sight. His legs braced instinctively. Still, no thunder. The silence afterward made the world feel like it was holding breath with him. He swung his head back toward the storm. Muscles tightened. Instinct clashed with necessity. He could stay here, safe, unmoving, until the sky decided what it wanted to be. But the herd behind him was hungry. The land they knew was nearly stripped dry. Fresh grass grew beyond that horizon, fed by storms like this one. Storms that terrified the ground before blessing it. His pulse thudded, steady and strong. Lightning flashed again, catching the curve of his horns in brilliant white. The reflection flared for the briefest moment, like fire trapped in bone. The buffalo exhaled slowly. This land demanded courage before offering reward. He shifted his weight forward, hooves angled toward the trembling plains. Just considering the first step made the air tense further. The storm paid attention. The ground listened. The herd waited. And the buffalo knew, without a doubt, the next move belonged to him. The first step hadn't been taken yet, but the sky reacted as though it already had. Thunderheads twisted overhead, massive, churning bodies of moisture and static, wrestling with themselves. They stacked higher and higher, climbing into the darkening heavens, like mountains learning to move. Lightning raced from cloud to cloud, branching in frantic paths. Each strike illuminated the world for a frozen instant. The ridges on the buffalo's horns, the anxious faces of the herd, the vast plain waiting to be challenged. Still no sound followed. Silent lightning. Silent fury. The buffalo's ears flicked backward. The herd behind him was restless. Hooves scraping dry dirt, tails slashing at invisible flies. They didn't like a storm that refused to speak. Predators hunted silence, and tonight the storm behaved like one. Hot wind pushed against the buffalo's flank, then vanished. Air swirled, hesitating, like the sky couldn't decide which direction to breathe. He lifted his muzzle toward the clouds. They smelled of distant rain. Not here yet, but close. Close enough to taste. A deep, earthy scent rolled across the plains, the kind that promised grass thick enough to hide hooves. The storm was coming to feed the land. But storms never arrived gently. Electricity crawled across the buffalo's fur, pinprick sensations sparking along his neck and spine. His muscles twitched in response, body bracing on instinct alone. The storm wanted movement. No, it demanded it. A wide strike of lightning shot downward again, closer this time, its white flash carving out every detail of the earth. Dry grass glowed silver, shadows sharpened into knives, and still the sky held its breath afterward, unwilling to roar, refusing to release tension. The buffalo snorted again, louder, stronger, as if to challenge the silence. The herd pressed closer behind him, searching comfort in the thickness of one another's bodies. Their shared breath became one warm cloud, pushing outward into the lifeless night. The leader stepped forward, just one pace, his hoof cracking the brittle crust of earth beneath. A pulse of light tore across the clouds, brighter than any before. It struck downward, violent, precise, splitting the horizon in half. This time, thunder followed. Late, but enormous. A rolling, earth-shaking growl that thundered through bone and soil alike. The sound ran under the buffalo's feet, raced up his legs, and crashed into his chest. A warning and a welcome all at once. The storm had found its voice. The buffalo's eyes narrowed, fueled by the electric breath of danger. Now thunder wasn't just watching. It was waiting for his next step. The ground still trembled from the thunder's late arrival, but the buffalo did not flinch. His hooves remained planted, chest rising slow and steady, a pillar of certainty against a sky that couldn't decide whether to destroy or renew. Behind him, the herd pressed into a tighter shape. Massive shoulders brushed together. Warm breath pooled in shared clouds. Eyes glimmered in fear and faith both, reflections of lightning quivering in dark pupils. They trusted him, not because he was the strongest, though he was strong, not because he was the oldest, though his scars spoke of years survived. They trusted him because he stepped first, when the future was uncertain. A young calf nudged against its mother's flank, spooked by the sharp crack of thunder. The mother snorted low and protective, her body forming a barrier around the calf's trembling legs. Yet her gaze never left the buffalo who stood before them. The storm was choosing a path. The plains were responding. Everything here depended on his decision. The leader flicked an ear backward, listening not for sound, but for belief. The herd wasn't simply watching him. They were anchoring themselves through him. His hesitation would become theirs. His courage would become a road. He breathed deep. The air was rich with the scent of coming rain. It stung his nostrils like smoke from a struck match. Lightning flashed again, thin and jagged, closer this time. The calves startled. Hind legs stumbled. Bodies pressed tighter. Still, silence followed. Thunder withheld itself, waiting for the next command. The buffalo turned his head slightly to the left, scanning the grassland. He saw the faint trail they would follow, a narrow corridor between dried shrubs and hard soil, disappearing into the approaching rain. A path meant for survival. A path that demanded a leader willing to face fire falling from the clouds. His shoulders rolled once, powerful muscles shifting beneath thick hide. Mud caked his hooves, cracked from drought, begging for water. Behind him, the herd breathed as one, a single living creature built from dozens of hearts. The buffalo stepped forward again, one heavy hoof sinking into thirsty ground. Thunder answered immediately, a rising roar that shook air and earth alike. The herd flinched, but they understood. When the storm speaks to one, it speaks to them all. No one moved but him. The buffalo lowered his head, not in submission but in defiance, and prepared to lead his world into lightning. The buffalo's hooves crushed brittle grass with each deliberate step. The earth beneath him felt tense, coiled with need. He paused for a moment and lowered his muzzle, brushing against the dried blades. They snapped instantly, stripped of moisture, crumbling into dust that whisked upward and hovered in the charged air. The plains were starving. The soil was cracked deep, as though the ground itself had cried and dried and forgotten how to open its mouth for water. Patches of exposed earth showed pale scars from months of drought. But beneath the surface, there was warmth, a faint pulse, life waiting for rain. Lightning slashed across the sky again, this time branching downward in a fork that struck much closer than before. So close the buffalo felt electricity pulse through the ground. His legs stiffened from the shock, but he did not stop. The herd behind him shuffled anxiously. Dust lifted in soft bursts around their hooves, proof they still hesitated on the safer side of fear. The buffalo swung his head slightly, listening. The plains answered. A distant rumble, not thunder, not sky, ground shifting. He stomped once. The response came again, a deeper vibration. The soil quivered in anticipation like a drum waiting for the next strike. Drought had kept the land still for too long. Storms were overdue. Grass roots strained upward, ready to burst through once the sky finally broke. The buffalo exhaled, a long, steady breath that steamed into the cool air. Gray clouds pressed lower, gathering weight, preparing to fall. He stepped forward again, planting his hoof into a crack in the dirt. The ground flinched beneath him, not sinking, bracing. Lightning hit the earth in the distance, and this time, thunder followed instantly. A violent, rolling boom that knocked dust loose from dry shrubs. Sound crashed into the plains like a stampede of sky-born hooves. The buffalo snorted, nostrils expanding with the smell of storm, wet, metallic, wild. The ground shook once more, urging him deeper into its heart. The herd began to move behind him, nervous but trusting. They followed his path, hooves punching urgency into the thirsty soil. Another lightning strike, a harsher tremor. The buffalo raised his head to meet the horizon, a wall of storms now racing toward them, dark and alive. Every step he took awakened the land. Soon, earth would no longer wait to tremble. It would rise. A gust of hot wind surged from the storm front, rolling across the plains like the first warning breath of a predator. It lashed through the buffalo's mane and slammed into the herd behind him, stirring a murmur of nervous grunts. The buffalo didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted his head higher, massive horns catching the next flash of lightning like twin blades forged from bone and sky. The light lingered on them, reflecting a harsh white gleam across his eyes. His horns looked ready to fight the storm itself. The clouds above twisted again, churning darker, lower, heavier. It was as if the sky had bent down to sniff the courage of the beast stepping toward its heart. Thunder rolled, not a single clap, but a deep, continuous growl that rattled the earth's ribs. It didn't explode. It warned. The herd halted behind him, hooves digging trenches into dry soil. Calves pressed tight against their mothers. The older bulls watched the leader's back, waiting to see if he would turn away. But he didn't. He faced the fire falling from the sky. Lightning struck again, this time not in the distance but directly ahead, carving a jagged scar into the earth. Flames licked at the dry grass for a brief, defiant second before the wind smothered them. Not mercifully, but possessively. The buffalo felt heat radiate toward him. Danger. Opportunity. His chest expanded, pulling charged air deep into his lungs. Each breath tasted like metal, like the sharp edge of a blade, like the moment before hooves meet bone. This was a challenge, not from predator nor rival, but from the sky itself. The buffalo lowered his head until his horns pointed forward, aligned with the direction of the next strike. His stance widened, shoulders locked, breath steady. If the storm wanted a fight, he would begin it. He stamped the earth, a powerful, defiant blow that cracked dry soil beneath him. A shockwave of tension spread through ground and air alike. The herd behind him let out a collective snort, fear tangled with awe. The buffalo's horns glimmered as another bolt tore the sky open. The plains no longer felt vast and empty. They felt small enough for one beast and one storm to decide the future. And if lightning was fire, his horns were the answer. The buffalo stood strong against the storm's stare, horns forward, hooves dug deep, breath steady enough to challenge thunder. Then the change came. Not from the sky, not from the ground, but from the air between. A breeze, faint at first, brushed past his flank, lifting the coarse fur along his ribs. It circled him once, confused by its own return, then pushed outward toward the herd. Their hides rippled under its touch, ears flicking in startled surprise. The wind had found its courage again. It carried new scents: wet soil, damp leaves, fresh grass growing somewhere ahead where rain had already won. The buffalo inhaled sharply. Yes, life was not far. Behind him, the herd felt it too. Heads rose, spines straightened, wide nostrils tasted hope. The youngest calves stepped forward, guided by instinct more than bravery. Their mothers followed, nudging them gently into motion. The older bulls rumbled deep in their chests, a shared decision forming. They would walk where their leader walked. The buffalo shifted his weight and took another step, then another. The wind surged stronger, meeting each stride like applause. Grass bent under his hooves now, not with fear but with excitement, a wave of movement rolling across the plains ahead of him. Even the lightning paused after its flash, as if holding back to watch where the buffalo would go next. The storm was learning patience. Thunder rumbled, not loud this time, but supportive, like a drum warming up before battle. The clouds gathered into a tighter mass, preparing to follow instead of lead. The buffalo raised his head again, eyes narrow against the flickering light. Raindrops, huge, cold, started to fall, slow and scattered. They dotted his hide, soaked into his mane, slid down his muzzle. The first drops of the season. Each one hit the earth with a soft hiss. Dry ground drinking greedily, grateful for the sky's surrender. The wind wrapped around the buffalo like a mantle, no longer resisting, no longer lost, finally alive. He snorted once, sharp and confident. Movement had returned. Energy had returned. The plains had remembered their purpose. And now, with the storm waiting for his command, the buffalo walked on, steady, unstoppable, toward the horizon, where rain and promise met. The raindrops came faster now. They hit the ground with soft thuds that quickly became steady drumming, soaking deep into cracked earth. The first puddles formed in hoofprints left only moments ago, tiny mirrors catching the chaos of the sky above. The buffalo did not slow. Dirt turned into pliant soil beneath his weight, each footfall pressing life deeper into the land. Grass glimmered in the growing wetness, its brittle edges softening into green again, the first color to return to a world too long starved of rain. The herd followed close behind, a moving tide of muscle and instinct. Their breaths, once sharp with fear, now came stronger, matched to the rhythm of the storm. Calves pranced awkwardly through mud, discovering the thrill of soft earth. Every step forward became an invitation. Lightning struck again, this time directly to the leader's right, blazing bright enough to paint the plains white. The buffalo halted, head high. For a heartbeat, silence returned. A single breath when the world forgot how to move. Then, thunder exploded. It rolled across the earth like a wall, a roar so powerful the soil trembled beneath it. The air shook within it, and the storm finally admitted its answer. The buffalo's ears flicked back as the booming wave hit him, but he stood firm, unmoved, unafraid. Thunder was no longer a threat. It was recognition, a voice of the sky proclaiming, "You stepped first. We will follow." The rains thickened into sheets, rinsing dust from hides, renewing scent, feeding land. The clouds no longer looked angry, only purposeful. Wind whipped across the buffalo's broad shoulders, not to push him back, but to clear his path. He exhaled, and the storm seemed to inhale in response. Around him, plains awakened, 1,000 seeds stirring beneath the soil, 1,000 blades of grass preparing to rise. The buffalo lowered his head, as if thanking the storm without bowing to it, and moved forward again. Behind him, hooves pounded in unity. Ahead of him, thunder announced their arrival. The future, once silent and dry, now roared with life. The plains had found their heartbeat,